All right, hey everybody, let's get started. I'd like to welcome you all to our CrazyTalk Animator 3 webinar called From Script to Scene. This is actually a three-part webinar. We're going to be doing today, tomorrow, and also, today's Monday, Wednesday. Depends on where you are in the world. It could be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but where I am here in the West Coast, it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. All right. So yeah, this is a three-part webinar. Like I mentioned, we're going to walk through a whole process of creating a scene, animating it, creating the characters, customizing the characters, all sorts of different stuff here. What I'm going to do first is just walk you through a really quick PowerPoint here. We're going to summarize all the topics we're going to be talking about. But before we do that, I wanted to mention a couple things here. For all of those of you who are interested, we are sending out a survey for the end of this webinar here. If you fill out that survey for us, we'll give you a $10 gift certificate for the content store. So make sure you check your email for that survey and you get some free swag from the content store. And yeah, we'll be sending that out at the end of the webinar. And also, if you have any questions during this webinar, you can feel free to put those questions in the question section of your GoToWebinar panel. And we'll be having a brief Q&A session at the end of this webinar. Okay, so probably the last 10-15 minutes or so we'll reserve for that. So if you have any questions about the process, I can answer those questions for you. And if anything goes a little too quick for you here, we are actually recording this webinar as well. So you can review it on your own time. We're going to be sending you a video link that you can review on your own time. And I think that's about all there is to it. So let's get right into it then with the scripts here, with the learning points. Class 1, which is today, we have an hour class today. First, we're going to talk briefly about the UI introduction. I don't want to go too basic because maybe a lot of you have already used CrazyTalk Animator and are familiar with it, so I don't want to go too basic. Just a couple tips that I use when I'm producing. We're going to talk about how to create a scene background. I'm going to just show you a scene background that I've already created and kind of deconstruct it for you, show you how to construct, create that scene and different techniques that I use to find stuff. We're also going to be using animated props. So I'm going to be using animated props, elastic motions. I'm going to talk about how to use the new elastic motions in CrazyTalk Animator 3 to create a cool looking title. And we're also going to be creating custom titles and props in Photoshop. We won't go into too much detail on that because we spend a lot of time in Photoshop in the next part 2 of this class here, which talks about character customization and elastic motion basics, like I mentioned already. And we can talk a little bit about adding music and sound effects into this as well. Now, sound effects are mostly going to be in the third class where we're going to be doing the animation, but I'll show you how to add some music real quickly into this webinar. Okay, so, and for those of you who are attending the second and third classes, here's a little overview for you guys. Class 2, we're talking about character customization, custom head creation, how to create a head from scratch, free bone actor creation using actor templates, basically everything to do with character creation. So we have a full hour and we're going to talk a lot about customizing different types of characters. We have a lot of tutorials on our YouTube channel that you can check out as well, but this is a good class for getting in-depth help, and you can ask questions and everything like that as well. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to talk all about character creation and customization. And finally, class 3 is the animation class. We're going to talk about body animation, facial animation, and camera work. And this is some really brief and easy camera work. And I'll talk a little bit about how I assemble and render my projects in using Adobe Premiere. Now, you can also use other programs as well, but I'm just more familiar with Adobe Premiere, so that's what I use. You can also use other programs aside from Photoshop as well, such as GIMP, which is a free program. That's G-I-M-P, GIMP. You can Google it and check it out. All right, so that's basically it. That's all the learning points. That's the end of our slideshow there. So we're not going to talk too much about this anymore. We'll go ahead and close the slideshow. And in this webinar, we're going to be using some characters from one of our developers named Gary Pye. And we have a special offer only for the attendees of this webinar here. We're going to be sending you a link where you can get 35% off these Little Mates characters, which are the characters I'm going to be using. I'm going to show you how to customize them in part 2 and then how to animate them in part 3. And so we'll be sending you this link with the code LittleMates, and you can go ahead and get 35% off. There's tons of stuff here like security, hazmat, thieves, basically almost any scenario you can think of, a whole bunch of characters on here. And you'll get 35% off discount exclusively for attendees of this webinar. All right, and we're also going to, I'm just going to close down Chrome for now. We're also going to be giving you the project files. So for this entire webinar, I'm going to be using a number of different projects here, and I'm going to be showing you how to use those project files, or we're going to be sending those project files to you in a link. So some of you may experience watermarks, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, but let's go ahead and take a look at the final video that we're going to produce first, okay? So basically, let's take a look at the script first, actually, okay? So I'm going to open up the script here. Now, this is just a basic script template that I downloaded off of Google somewhere, and we're going to be sending you this script template as well, so you can go ahead and use this for your own purposes as a template for scripts. Okay, so basically what we have is the stories about two private eyes. They're kind of a quirky couple. Marv is one of the private eyes. You can read this on your own time later when you have the time. Marv is the gruff, old private eye detective, kind of a little rough around the edges, and his assistant Kip is the soft-spoken, more polite, and maybe younger detective who's on the team with Marv there. And just a kind of a silly, stupid script that I came up with, a little bit of comedy in there. And you can see there's some screen directions and everything, and we have different dialogue for Marv and Kip. And I'll play a video in just a moment here so you can see the finished product. And by the end of this webinar, we're going to be having this entire thing. We have 3 separate scenes, 4 separate scenes actually. So basically in the first scene here, Kip and Marv are going to be chatting back and forth about a new case they have. And then second scene, we're going to be running and chasing. This is where we're going to be animating the runs for our characters. They're going to be chasing a culprit or a suspect. And then on the third and final scene, the culprit is on a rooftop. And I don't know if I want to spoil it for you, but yeah, something happens. We'll just scroll away from that. Anyways. Okay, so I guess I won't spoil it because we're going to play the video now anyways. All right, no spoilers, or we will have spoilers, okay? So I'm just going to go ahead and play this video for you guys, and you'll see the finished product, and then we'll get right into starting with our animation title, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and just load this in. Oops. I need to give you some audio here so you can actually see it. I'm going to make sure my audio is up. I have my headphones on right now. So unfortunately, GoToWebinar doesn't stream audio, so I have to play it from my laptop speakers here. And the Law and Order music in the background there, some of you may recognize that. And just a simple title sequence. We'll talk about how to create that in just a moment.
What you doing there, kid? Writing a letter to your boyfriend?
Actually, sir, I'm trying to figure out how we're going to infiltrate this furry club. They seem like a close-knit bunch.
Simple, kid. We go in there and bust some heads. Good old-fashioned detective work.
Actually, sir, I was thinking more along the lines of costumes. Since it's a furry convention, we could sneak in unnoticed.
Odd if I'm thinking there, kid. Guess that's why I pay you the big bucks.
Last month you paid me with a book of coupons from Walmart.
Literally hundreds in savings.
Okay, this is a stupid little dialogue back and forth. Both my voice actually, just kind of edited a little bit. And then we have them chasing the culprit here to some Benny Hill music. And then our final scene, just on the rooftop here. And these are all Gary Pie scenes. A lot of these are.
You cornered. There's nowhere to run.
You'll never take me alive, coppers. Oh.
We'll talk about how to customize the character's face and everything as well a little bit
Well,
later on.
there goes another one. Sometimes I think we're getting too old for this stuff, kid.
And there's our wah-wah trombone. All right, so apologies for the cheesy dialogue and everything, but that's what we're working with for this webinar. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about how to create the title sequence. Now I have projects for all these files here. I'll go ahead and find them in my web of folders here. If I can find the correct, there we go. Okay, from script to scene. So we have all the project files. You'll get something like this with all the project files in this folder here. Now, some of you, unless you've purchased those two characters from the Gary Pie pack, you'll see watermarks whenever you bring those characters on the screen because that's they have DRM protection when they're downloaded from the content store. So unless you have purchased those characters, you may see watermarks. Just as a preface here for those of you who may wonder what's happening there. Okay, so. And then we have a number of assets in the folder here. We'll be using most of these assets later on in the webinar. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to talk about is how to create the opening sequence here. We can go ahead to, that's actually in a different folder, the video, I believe. Yeah, so I have it in a different folder here. CTA class. Okay, so this, actually, we'll just go ahead and open the project. Because some of you may be experiencing lag when I play back videos. GoToWebinar is not the best for that. So I'll just go ahead and open the project here. And the intro project is the one we're going to be dealing with first here. So, oops, need to drag it in there. Okay, so we're going to be talking first about how to create the intro scene with the little elements, the intro elements. And I'm going to load up Photoshop as well because we're going to be using Photoshop to create those elements. Oops. Okay, so the pop video that I had is not there. So this is the intro, and as you can recall, we had a video come up in front of the scene, but now I've misplaced the file, so we'll have to render that a bit later on. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with a new project, and I'm going to create a title from elements in Photoshop. Okay, so I'm going to go back to Photoshop here, find my from script to scene here, assets, and we'll have something called logo. I believe this is the one here. And in logo, you'll find our logo, our title logo here. Okay, Marvin Kip, Private Eyes. Now it's important to note that each of these are on separate layers because we're going to export them separately as separate PNGs because we want them to be different elements in our final product here. Okay, so in this folder here, Marvin Kip, you'll see the Kip and Marv, just simple text elements that I've added in there. And then we have the Private Eyes text. I'm not going to go into too much detail on how to do these effects in Photoshop. You can just go ahead and go to Title and go to Layer. And most of these are done with layer effects. Like a layer style and stuff like that. There's bevel and emboss, stroke. You can do drop shadows and all this stuff over here. I'm not going to go into too much detail on that. If I want to stroke, for example, you can pull up this box here. We can mess around with the size of the outer border there. I'm not going to use that though. I have bevel and emboss, as you can see here. I deselect that. We'll have that. Actually looks kind of nice, but you can use that. You can also use something like a glow. Let's try to have an outer glow here. Whatever looks nice, whatever you like. But you can find it all in this layer style window here, okay? And do that on your own time. We're not going to spend too much time figuring out how to do the stuff in Photoshop because we're going to focus on animating the title in CrazyTalk Animator. And then we have this ellipse in the background, okay? This doodad right here, just Control Z that. And we have this rounded rectangle as a separate file as well. And those all have different layer effects on there as well. You can see the bevel and emboss, inner shadow, bevel and emboss, drop shadow. Pretty simple stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is we need to export each one of these elements separately. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to go ahead and deselect, make everything invisible. Now we can go ahead and export this as a separate PNG. So we're going to go File, Export. You can go to Quick Export as PNG here, and we can save it as, there should be a folder here in my other class here for exports. All right, and we'll just call this M and K, okay, just an indicator that it's that Marvin Kip. So this is our file right here, just a transparent PNG, Marvin Kip, okay? And then we can do the same thing for the other parts. Private eyes, we'll export that separately. We'll just call this private eyes. And then we'll do the rounded rectangle, same thing. And yellow EG for background. And then our ellipse, file, export, and green EG, okay? Okay, so we just have those 4 different elements in that export folder now, and we have them all saved. So what I want to do is I want to bring them into CrazyTalk Animator, and let's get into animating them. Okay, so we'll go back to that same folder there, CTA class, and export, and you'll see our files right here. All you do is click and drag them into CrazyTalk Animator. And we can do that one by one, and just click and drag from your Explorer, import as a prop. Okay, and you'll see it open like that, or appear like that as a prop. And then what I do is normally go up to the top left here, and I enter in 0 for all these values here, just to make sure it's centered on my scene. Okay, right in the center. All right, and then let's do the same thing for the other folders, or the other items here. So just import Marvin Kip as a prop. We can do the same thing with private eyes. Just import it anywhere. It doesn't really matter because we'll just zero it out later on. And I'm using Alt-Tab, by the way, to quickly go to the Explorer window and import that stuff in. Okay, and then when you import it in, you can just zero out everything, and it'll be in the exact same position that you had it in Photoshop. Okay, so this is just an easy way to align everything to the way you had it in Photoshop. Okay, now this one's behind the background here, so what we need to do is make sure it's in front by clicking this little doodad on the front, on the bottom here, this little arrow. You can click and drag that to move stuff forward and backwards on the Z-axis. Okay, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later as we assemble our scene, our office scene, in the next section of this webinar. Okay, so now we have this cool-looking title. All right, but we need to animate it. Okay, let's make it the entire screen right here. We want to make it pretty big. Okay, so we want to go ahead and animate this. And the way we're going to animate it is we're going to use elastic motions. So elastic motions are a really cool addition to CrazyTalk Animator 3. They're just motion templates that you can use to create dynamic entrances or exits from various scenes. So what I'm going to do first is we're going to go ahead and we can go to the scene manager here. So the scene manager is where you can easily select your elements. Especially when elements are layered on top of each other like this, it may be hard to select the ones you want. So I recommend going to the scene manager and selecting them like this, okay? And you can make them invisible temporarily by deselecting the checkboxes right here. And you can also lock them as well. If I wanted to select everything except for the green background, I can lock the green background. I can just go ahead and click and drag and move everything except for the green background itself, okay? Let's Control Z that. And so that's how lock works. There's a little quick tip for you there. It's useful when you're have stuff layered in front of each other. Okay, so let's go ahead then and animate this stuff. Back to the Content Manager, and we want to go back down to Elastic Motions. And Elastic Motions, I'm going to use the Entrance Elastic Motions because these are used for things entering the scene, to be frank. Okay, so make sure that we have the green background selected. And we're going to go ahead and apply an entrance clip to this. Okay. Now you can choose any of these. I'm going to go ahead and use this Move Bounce one. Okay. Now that may be a little bit fast on GoToWebinar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press F3 now and go into the timeline. Now one thing I recommend doing that I personally use all the time is I use this item, this option here called Object Related Track. Now when you have this enabled, no matter what you select in your scene, it's just going to open up that single track. So I can, click on Marvin Kipp and it'll change to MNK. I can click on the private eyes and it'll change to the private eyes layer. And it'll only show that layer. All right, so it's just something I like to use, to be honest, because when you click on something, that's normally the only thing you want to edit. So it's a really quick shortcut. So let's make sure we have the green background here. So we applied that animation to the green background. That can be found in the motion track right here. And you'll see this clip move_bounce, okay? And if we click and drag on the top section here, we can see it frame by frame, come into our scene like this, and bounce a couple times, and eventually settle down right here. Now you can extend the length of this if you want. You can loop it and everything like that, but what we're going to do is just keep it the way it is. And we're going to go do the same thing with the yellow box, okay, the yellow background. So yellow background, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to frame 5. You can use this little doodad here to go to frame, go ahead frame by frame, okay? Maybe let's go to frame 8, okay? And go to the content manager again. And this one, we can go ahead and use like a move damp, okay? So what this one, or move damp, yeah, okay. What this one's going to do, you'll see the difference here. Okay, so with the yellow background selected, let's actually make our green background, let's make everything else invisible in the scene manager. I'm just going to focus on the yellow background here. Okay, so the yellow background, you can see it starts right here, and it'll kind of disappear because at frame 8 is when we created the animation. So obviously we don't want this yellow box to be starting on the screen for no reason. So what we want to do is at frame 1, with the yellow box selected, make sure yellow BG is selected, go up here and make your box invisible, okay? And then we go to the visible tab, you can see it creates a keyframe there, or a visible section there, and you can see in the visible track there's a keyframe. And we don't want that item to be visible until the very first frame of our animation. So at frame 1 of the motion or move damp animation, I'm going to go ahead and make it visible again. And then you can see here, this is where the yellow box will become visible, and so we have like something like this. So up until this point it's invisible, and then it just comes in like it normally would, okay? All right, and you can see the damping effect as it kind of goes a little bit further than it should, but then gradually just settles back. So not so much a bouncing effect, more like a dampening effect, okay? So then if we have the green background and the yellow background together, we'll have the green background bounce like that, and the yellow background just kind of damp, and they'll finally settle in right there. Okay, so at this frame, this is when we want to animate the second and third parts of our title, which are the MNK and the private eyes. Okay, so up until this point, what I'm going to do is with MNK selected, we're going to make that invisible again, and private eyes, we're also going to make that invisible. And then when our stuff comes in and starts to settle down, then we can have the titles appear on our backgrounds. So let's go to Content Manager, and with MNK selected here, we're going to import that in first. We're going to use something like, we can use roll bounce, okay, something like this. Okay, now we can't see it because we need to go to the motion track again, at the frame 1, we need to make it visible, okay? And then when we scroll in, you'll see it'll just kind of bounce in like that, boing, 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 just like that, okay? And now you can modify these if you want by right-clicking your clip and selecting Elastic Motion Editor. So there's a whole number of different ways you can modify this. Okay, you can change the scale if you want. You can change it, the degree, the rotation, and everything. If I zoom out, for example, you'll see this is an entrance clip, entrance mode. So this is the origin right here, this blue box on the left. This is the origin of our title, so where it comes from. So you can see it starts right here, and we can move that wherever we want. We can move it up here if we want, so it'll bounce in from the top, okay, just like that. And let's go ahead and just keep it from the side there. Oops, make sure we have our Elastic Motion Editor available there. There we go. Just bring it in from the side there. Just keep it the way it's normally supposed to be. Okay, and then we can also go here and edit the motion curve. Okay, before I do that, notice that it's currently rotating around the center. So it's rotating around the end, and that's because the pivot point right here, align, is at the center. You can make it rotate along the corner if you want, and you'll see something like this, just like that, okay? So it'll be a little bit strange. But in certain situations, you may want that, okay? So let's just keep it aligned to the center. And the scale, we can make it, scale of, let's just lock the ratio. Let's put something like 20, okay? And so when it'll start from 20, and it'll go to the original size. So it'll start from 20 and scale up to 100, okay? And you can move it from whatever direction as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's just keep that at like 100. I don't really care about the scale that much. Okay, so we'll just fly in like that. And then you can also go to the motion curve here as well, which is what I wanted to mention. Now you can see currently it's end and a bounce. We can change it to the same damping that we had before. Okay, so if we change it to damping, then you'll see it'll just go room and then gradually move back to that position there. Okay, and we can change gain momentum and damp. Okay, there's smooth. Okay, that's actually kind of nice, the nice smooth animation there, okay? So these motion curves, generally when you see the line go fairly high, that means there's a lot of action happening, like this damping one, for example. There's a lot of action happening at the beginning, and then it kind of peters out. The gain momentum one, you'll see very little action happening at the beginning, and then everything will happen in the middle and kind of fade out at the end. All right. Hopefully that's clear as mud, but you can always review this later on. Let's go ahead and keep the smooth title for Marv and Kip here. So then we have this, and that kind of just casually comes in. And then what I want to do is select my, now we're going to select the Private Eyes title. We're going to apply something to this. We're going to apply a roll zoom. Okay, again, we can't see it until we make it visible. Let's go ahead and do that. Make it visible, and then we'll see. Okay, so it'll come in from the side just like that. And that roll zoom, I don't really like that one. We can go ahead and apply a different one if we want. So we can just select this clip here and delete it. It'll just end up at the beginning there. We can go ahead and try something like World Damp or World Decelerate. Okay, so then it'll just come in like this. That's a lot of a faster one. So you can see, you can even change the opacity, okay, from 0 to 100 as well. So we go to Elastic Motion Editor. There is the fade in option right here. Okay, so the fade in option will allow you to fade in the opacity, just like that. Okay, all right, so it's not exactly the same as the original one. I just kind of wanted to show you a few more options here, but let's go ahead and work with that. So that's our title right there, okay? So all the elements in Photoshop, I'm going to go ahead and close this down. Now we just need to go ahead and render it. So let's just keep in mind here, you can go ahead and select camera record mode, and then you can center everything. Oops, I'm going to get a little bit of a quick introduction to the camera here. Because one thing I forgot to mention, I'm at frame 79. So when you're at frame 79 and you animate the camera, it's going to animate. We talk more about this in the third part of this webinar, but okay. So what we want to do is go to frame 1, make sure everything is centered right around the middle here. We can actually go to the last frame and make sure everything's centered. And then we can move that keyframe a little bit later on. Okay, so let's just, the red outline here, this is what's going to be rendered, okay? Everything outside this red outline is not going to be rendered in your final render, okay? Let's just take this camera position keyframe, all right, and take it back to the beginning. So our camera will stay here, and this is what we're going to see. Okay, cool. So next task is going ahead and rendering something. So what I'm going to do now is go to Render, and you can also go up here to the Export option right here. Another thing I wanted to mention as well is it's always a good idea to use your little project length indicator here on the bottom right where my mouse is right now, and click and drag that to wherever you want the project to end, okay? Whoops, I forgot, before we actually render it, we have to make all this stuff invisible. Okay, now this is what I wanted to mention as well. We need to link everything together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually we're going to make it all invisible at the same time. We're going to make it exit all at the same time. So I'm going to go to the Scene Manager here, with the green background. We're going to use that as our master prop, I guess. And then we're going to go ahead and go to exit here. And in exit, we can use whirl enlarge, okay? And that's going to just kind of like, zoom it out. It's going to fade out as it approaches the camera. Okay, so I'm going to press F3 again, go into the timeline, and you can see here our whirl enlarge. Now what I need to do is somewhere in here, I need to link all these other props to my green background. So that's quite easy to do. All I need to do is just select them from the scene manager. So I'll go to M&K, for example, and we can go up here, and there's a link option. So you can link it to the green background, okay? And then private eyes, same thing. Just go ahead and link it to the green background, and then our yellow background, we'll also link that to the green background. And then what's going to happen, they're all going to do the same thing, okay? Just like this. Now they don't fade out because the fading isn't linked, but what you can do is you can actually just go ahead and fade them out yourself. We're not going to talk about that right now. Let's go ahead and just use this right there, okay? And it needs to be a little bit further out. Maybe we'll have to use, let's go ahead and edit our green background here. The elastic motion editor here. Okay, so we're going to have to make it a little bit further out. Let's just do something like 1,000 maybe. Okay, and then we'll just, no, maybe 700. Okay, and then we'll just change the position slightly. So, and exit out of here, and just move it. Oops. We're going to just move it out here or something like that. Okay, but so long as there's nothing inside our camera area there. Okay, so now what we should have is we should have the complete exit. Oh, it seems like I accidentally moved the position of my background here. There we go. So what we need to do is in the transform section here, copy this initial frame and just paste it right here. Okay. Okay, and that's what we're going to have. It's going to go a little bit to the side, but it's going to fade out and go out of our scene eventually. Okay, so that's what we're going to render. Okay, and we'll go ahead and go to frame, keep our project about this length right here, and then we're going to go ahead and render this out. Okay, so let's go ahead and export it up here. You can export it as a pop video to keep the transparency. Now, if you have the Mac version, there's also a preset for the Mac that you can export. I believe I'm not sure the actual settings. You can probably email me later. My email is kai@reallusion.com. That's kai@reallusion.com. I forget the technical export for the Mac, but there's a MOV that you can export from the Mac version that's transparent as well. We're going to use pop video, which is kind of like our transparency video format. That's with all of our products, iClone, CrazyTalk, Animator, everything. Okay, we'll just go ahead and export this 1280 by 720 as a pop video, and just go ahead and export. And let's just go back to that folder. What was it again? Oh yeah, webinars. Sorry, my web of folders here. CTA class. Export. Okay, so we'll just call this title 01. Go ahead and save that. It'll export 188 images. So what we can do is at this point, once this is finished, I'm going to load up my background that you saw, the overhead city view, and we're going to talk about how to animate those cars going back and forth. Really simple stuff. Actually, a lot simpler than what we just did with the title. Maybe we should have started with that, but here we're just going to go ahead and press OK. And we can go ahead and close this down. And let's take a look at our final export right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and we can save this project actually. Let's just save it as in a temp folder just in case here. CTA title. You'll get a better version of this. That doesn't have all those transforms and everything. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and view the export, which is this one right here. I'll start a new project and bring this pop video in. Okay, we can just bring it in as a prop. All right, you're not going to see anything at first, but we can zoom in real close here and play back. Okay, and there is everything taken care of right there. All right, probably want to make it a little bit bigger to cover our entire scene, but that's pretty much it. There we go. Okay, so that's our title. We can go back to open our other project here, which is the intro scene now. I'm not going to save that. I was working on some other stuff here. Let's go back to the webinar folder here. Books and resources. Okay, intro. This one right here. Right, so what we would just normally do is we would import in that pop video over top of the intro scene, and then we would animate it. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is actually find that intro text here. Just play back here. We can just delete it, I believe. There you go. Okay. So we have this scene where the cars were going back and forth, and I would go back to my export folder, CTA class right here, and I have the video here somewhere. Oh, in the export folder, right? Okay, and then we would take this in just like this, import it in as a prop. You can also import it in as an image layer as well, but I just like props because they're a bit more flexible. And then we just go ahead and resize that like this, and just go ahead and play back. And we need to make sure that's above in front of our project right there. Okay, let's select that title here. And we can also now go into 3D view mode. All right. And what I want to make sure is I want to make sure that this title is in front of everything here. So it looks that way right now. Okay, we need to go from the side here. Make sure it's ahead on the z-axis, 60 value of 60 there. And then we play back. We should be able to see it. There you go. Okay, so there's our title. Marvin Kip, Private Eyes. It'll go to the scene like that. And the background, it'll continue playing if you don't make it invisible, by the way. Looks like that one car is still in front of it, but okay. So that's kind of the point right there. That's how you import in the title. I'm going to press F3, go into the motion track, or rather the opacity track here. And let's just go ahead and at this point here, after it plays, oh, we have to play back because it's a video file here. Okay, we'll pause right there and then just make it invisible. Okay, we'll just use the visibility, not the opacity this time. Cool, all right, so there we go. You can also fade out with the opacity here on the top. You can keyframe the opacity, but visibility is just easier in this case. Okay, so now about these cars here. What I did with these cars is I just searched for cartoon cars overhead. And this is another way you can import in props. Okay, so this above this top view, this bird's eye view of the city is actually from Gary Pye as well. You can find that in the content store. If you get it, it's under Content Manager, under Scenes. Gary Pye has his own folder for scenes. So there's, right here, Easy Scene, or the Cityscape. Here's the rooftop view and the city below. This is the one I used right here, the city below. And the rooftop view we use in part 3 of this webinar. Okay, so let's talk about how to animate these cars. It's actually really simple. I'm going to show you really quickly. What I do is I just go over here to Google, and I type in cartoon cars overhead or top or something like that, Google image search, and then just go to images. There's a whole ton of these things you can import in. What I like to do when I'm searching for props, especially in CrazyTalk Animator, is you want to make sure they're transparent. So you need to go to Settings and go to Advanced Settings, and you need to make sure that your image file type is set to PNG. Okay, that's important because it's basically the only transparent image format that you'll find on Google Images. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but go ahead and advanced search that. So basically all of these would be transparent images on the top. And let's just go ahead and choose this police cruiser one right here, okay? So we can go ahead and just save that and save it as, we'll save it to our desktop, sure. Police car top view, okay. So then what I'm going to do is in this scene, I'm just going to add another police cruiser, okay? Let's actually make our title invisible so it's not messing with our animation here. And I'll just go ahead and add in police cruiser, maybe somewhere, and okay, maybe about this frame. We'll have it following behind this GT or whatever it is. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my desktop here actually. I'm using Windows M hotkey in case you're wondering. And I'll click and drag this police car, Alt-Tab over to CrazyTalk again, and just place it anywhere in my scene as a prop, okay? You'll see it'll be larger and it'll be in the background. So again, we need to bring it forward on the Z-axis just like this. And I'm going to just go ahead and, it doesn't really matter what we do at this frame. You'll see a green line follow behind it. That's just a movement transform. That's going to be change of position during the scene. I'm just going to go ahead and make it a bit smaller. And we're going to place it this way on this end over here to make sure it's beyond the red frame, by the way. And I'm going to go ahead and flip it using this option here, horizontal flip. It'll be going this direction. Let's just place it over here. And at this point, I'm going to select, right-click the object and select Remove Object Animation. So now there's absolutely no animation. So again, if you happen to be in a circumstance where you accidentally imported in at frame 208, for example, and you don't want it to be animated, just right-click it, select Remove Object Animation. Really quick and easy solution. Okay, so from this frame until, let's make it a bit smaller actually, and we'll have to do the same thing, because when you scale it, you'll also animate it as well. Okay, so from this frame until this frame to the end of the project, let's just have it move up like this. Okay, and you'll see that green line again all behind it. Just a quick animation. Okay, so that's a really simple and easy way to animate your prop. Okay, looks like the the white car here is overtaking you. Let's just delete that stupid white car and get out of here. Okay. Okay. Our cop is going a little slow. Okay. And at any time, if you want to change the position, you can press F3 and go into the timeline. And the transform track is where you'll find the keyframes for position change. Okay. So you'll see one at the very end of the project here and one at the very beginning. If I wanted the cop to be going a little bit slower, well, then I can just click on this keyframe right here. Another useful tip as well is you can press the tab key to tab between your transform keyframes. Between any keyframes really on your timeline, you can press tab and you can go from one to the other, so you're not trying to click it. You can also press shift tab to go backwards. We only have two though, so we only have, it doesn't really matter if we just press tab or shift tab. Okay, let's just move it to that point right there. Okay, so it's moving really slow. It's like an elderly cop maybe. Okay, no offense to elderly drivers out there, but okay, that's what we have right there. And now this text title basically right here is just something that I brought in with opacity. Again, this directed by Kai here. I believe it's this, I'm not sure which item it is. Maybe it's, oh, this is the image layer right here. So I imported it in as an image layer. You can see the opacity keyframes right here. So from here to here, take a look at the opacity at the top, 36 to 100 right away, and then it's more of a slow fade out from here to there. Okay. If I want it to be an even slower fade out, I can click and drag that keyframe and have it even fade out even slower. Okay, so that's it for this. Let's go ahead, and the final topic we're going to talk about today is I'm going to be showing you how to create a bug and animate it. And we're also going to be talking a little bit about how to modify the office scene where you saw our characters talking earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the scene right here. Actually, we don't want the characters in the scene yet, so I'll have to open up the other one. But I'm going to show you a really useful little tip here on how to basically warp different textures to cover different angles of your scene. It's importing in all that animation. Okay. So the same thing, we're just going to import it in without the characters. Okay, and I believe what I searched for this wall here, you can see this brick wall in the back, it's actually just an image. Okay, so I can move that image around like this, and it's behind all the objects. And this was the original wall. So the original project that I took this from, you might recognize it. If you go to the Content Manager, you'll find in Scenes, you'll find the office somewhere down here. It's embedded with CrazyTalk, so you should have this. Office right here. Okay, so there's an office right here. The RS stands for render style. We can talk about that a little bit later, how you can change the different colors of the different elements in your scene. But I'm going to show you how to import in this brick wall and kind of warp it to fit the angle of your camera perspective. Okay, so you can just search for like cartoon wall or something like that. I forget what I searched for a while ago, but I found this wall right here. So just a basic image of a wall, or I found this one as well. We can choose. This one looks a bit more maybe realistic. So let's go ahead and try this one, see how it looks. Okay, I'm going to take this wall and delete it now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in that other wall as a prop. Okay, so let's go click and drag, just like this, put it as a prop. Okay, so obviously we have a lot of work to do here. So what you can do is just expand it. Okay, I want the left side to be equal to the same size as this corner, as this edge here. So we can just expand it a little bit, and we'll go ahead and work with that. I think that's about maybe a little bit less. Okay, I think right about there will do. Okay, so now you have the issue of trying to get this wall to stretch along the perspective of the wall behind it. So what you want to do is use the prop key editor. Useful little tool with CTA 3, CrazyTalk Animator 3. Just use the deform option, okay? So deform option allows you to basically stretch it and move it using these little doodads to whatever perspective you like. All right, so a really useful little tool. And you can just stretch it out like this, stretch out the bottom somewhere over here. Again, I'm just doing a quick job here. You want to make sure it's not too stretched out. Try and keep the middle section just like this, okay? And then you go ahead and you can just select Smooth Deformed Object as well. Smooth Deformed Object, that'll basically give it a more detailed geometry. So if I deselect that, you'll notice that there's some like little wrinkles in the geometry there. Now that's because if we select Smooth, it's going to actually create some more details in the face of this object here. It gets a little complicated, but there's other tutorials on it. So let's just go ahead and stretch this out. Try and keep everything vertical. Right, and there you go. Simple and easy. Go ahead and close that down. And then, you know, if you need to stretch it for the entire rest of the wall here, like this part of the wall, well, you can just go ahead and hold the Control key, and you can click and drag, and that'll create a duplicate. Okay. Now, what you'd want to do with this duplicate is you'd want to flip it, horizontally flip it the other way. Okay, just like this, and then place it right about there. Okay, and then you'd want to do the exact same process that I showed you earlier by going to the prop key editor and just stretching out the base. Normally start with the end, like around here. Starting with the end is a good option. Okay, and when you horizontally flip it, one caveat here: when you horizontally flip it, your mouse movements will be inverted. Okay, so it's kind of a little quirky. Might get that fixed in the future, but just so you know, it'll move the opposite direction, which is why I'm kind of struggling here to get the opposite direction going. All right, and that works for me. And we can just go ahead and close that down. And there we go. There we have it, our wall. So what we want to do obviously here is we want to By the way, when you have something selected, if you want to tweak the movements, you can just select the object and press your keys, like up, down, left, right, okay, to get like really small movements. You can see the X move by 1 unit up there on the top left, okay? So I'm going to hold Control and click the other wall as well, and I'm just going to move these back, just like this. Make sure it's behind everything except for the wall, and there we go. And we can just make it a little bit larger if it doesn't seem large enough, and we can go ahead and work with that. So a really useful little tip, that that prop key editor, the deform option in the prop key editor, for really good, because it's something we couldn't do in CrazyTalk Animator 2, just stretch stuff like that and combine them and flip them and everything. So that's a really useful little tip to you know, getting, especially when you have different perspectives in your scene, to getting the materials and the backgrounds to fit properly. Okay, one final thing I'm going to talk about, and we're going to do this really quickly, is how to create a bug in Photoshop. Now, I don't know if you caught that, but in the original project, or in the video I showed earlier, there was a cockroach kind of skittering across the ground there, because it's kind of a dirty old office. So I'm going to show you how to create a cockroach and a quick prop animation. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to create a new project here, and 800 by 800 pixels is fine. Okay, and I'm just going to close that old title there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a really quick makeshift cockroach. Okay, so I have my black fill in here. I'm just going to go ahead and create, let's see, need to go to the ellipse tool, and let's create a nice black body for our cockroach here. Press the V hotkey and move it to the center, right there. And then I'll create another head. There's a circle for the head. Okay, just a stupid basic cockroach. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to create, I'm going to use my brush tool here. Let's just create a new layer. And I'm going to create a leg. So if you hold the shift key in the brush, by the way, you can create a very straight line. So holding shift and the brush will just create a exactly straight line. And then I'll go here and hold shift and go down. So here's our first spider leg. Kind of looks like the Spider-Man logo on the old school Spider-Man's chest. Okay, and then what I can do is I can just go ahead, I'm going to just use my polygon lasso tool, and we're going to just give it some, just select this area here and press delete to get rid of that. Give it like a nice tapered claw, and we can maybe do the same thing over here at the top, just to make it a bit more angular. Okay, we'll work with that. Press escape there, or Control D rather, to deselect. Okay, so there we have our first spider leg. All right, so we have it on these two separate layers, or on this single layer actually rather. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press Control T to transform it, and we'll put it into place. All right, something like that'll do. All right, I think that'll work just fine. And then what I can do is just duplicate the layer. Okay, and press the V hotkey and move it down. That'll give us our second leg. And then the same thing again, right click, duplicate layer. And we'll just move the third leg down here. We need to transform this one. Control T again to transform. All right, there we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift select all of these layers right here, and we're going to duplicate these layers. Okay, and then we're going to go to Edit, Transform, and Flip Horizontal. And then we have 3 other legs you can place over here, and just place them at an equal distance. Okay, so we have a spider created here. You know, you can group these layers if you want to get into detail here. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create 2 separate positions for our legs. So the first one is we're going to use the first 3 legs here. I'm not going to bother naming them here. Okay, I'm going to press Control T, and I'm going to move this pivot point to the middle here, or to the edge of where the leg is in the middle, and just kind of place this one down a little bit. And then we're going to select, press Enter, select the first one. Same thing. We're going to place it down like this, just like that. Okay, and then the middle leg, which is this one right here, Control T, I'm going to just rotate that upwards again, Make sure we place the pivot point properly. Okay, because this is kind of how spiders walk. Well, it's a six-legged spider, I guess, for simplicity's sake. All right, ants will walk this way. So the front and the rear legs will go down, and the middle leg will go up. All right, so I had to look that up on YouTube a while ago. Okay, so we can do the same thing for the other side here. So Control T. This one we're going to move the leg up, rotate it upwards slightly. Enter. Here's our last leg, and move that one up as well. Okay, just like that, and then enter. Control T for the middle one, and just rotate that. Whoops. Need to make sure we have the pivot point right here, and move it downwards. Okay, so what we have is the first position of our spider animation. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this out as a PNG file to my desktop. You can see I've already done this previously, so we have step 1 and step 2. Okay, now I'm just actually going to preview these here. Step 1 is this one right here, so very similar to what we just had right here. And step 2, basically, I just mirrored it. So I mirrored all these legs onto the other side. So if you see these ones right here, go to the next, you'll see them on the opposite side, exactly the same. So just basically 2 spider steps, step 1 and step 2. And this is going to create our animation. When it goes back and forth really fast, you'll see it kind of looks like an ant crawling, okay? So that's what we're going to go ahead and use. We don't need to save this one out. Now we can close Photoshop, and this is our final thing here in this webinar. Let's go to our desktop where we found those. Step 1, I'm just going to import in my step 1 Cockroach. All right, just place it anywhere we want on the scene as a prop. And let's just place it over here. Again, you can deform or stretch this, make it any size you want. Might want to thin it out a little bit. Just transform it or deform. You can hold Control to select multiple points as well, to make it a little bit thinner to give us different perspective here. Okay, enough of that. All right, so what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and go now to the composer. We're going to add a sprite onto this. So with our Cockroach selected, we can go to the sprite editor. And all we're going to do in the sprite editor is we're just going to add another sprite. So we're going to press plus here, and then step 2. So here's our spider animation now. Step 1 and step 2. So what we're going to be doing is animating with sprite switching back and forth. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the stage mode here. And all I'm going to do is press F3, go to the timeline. You can see we have our step 1. It's called step 1 here. It's just, I'm going to hold Alt and scroll my mouse button upwards to zoom out. So here in the timeline, you can hold Alt and scroll up and down your mouse button to zoom in and out. Really useful tip there. I use it all the time. Okay, so what we're going to do is with that open, we're going to go to the sprite editor. And you'll see step 1 S, which stands for sprite in the timeline there. And we're going to go ahead and enter at frame 3, step 2. And then at frame 5, we'll go back to step 1. And at frame 7, we'll go back to step 2. You can do this for as long as you want, but there you go. Okay, so that's good enough. We've done 11 frames of animation there. Probably need to zoom in. It's probably pretty hard for you guys to see. So this is our little animation now. So I press space to play back. You can see it'll run just like that. Now, one cool thing you can do here is you can open up the collect clip track and click and drag for the duration of all those sprite changes, and then right click and select add to action menu. Okay, and we'll just call this walk. Okay, so what that's going to do is that's going to add a clip, a motion file to our prop. Okay, so what I can do now is I can just go to frame 1. I can remove all the animation, remove object animation. So now we have no animation. But then I can right click my prop and go to my action menu, and I have the walk action that I saved earlier. Okay, when I play that back, you'll see our spider kind of skitter along there. And then to find that, we need now to go to the motion track. Okay, so the motion track, you'll see our motion clip right here, the walk motion clip. We play that back. There you go. And the usefulness of having a clip is that you can actually loop it. If you have this loop option selected up here, you can just click and drag and loop it for as long as you want. Okay. So now we have it just kind of looping, walking across the floor. Okay. So then the next is a transform position. So we'll go to transform at frame 1. We'll just go to, let's just go to our camera animation mode here, frame 1. If we had a scene like this, for example, at frame 1, we'd want our spider out of the scene. So we can click it over here. And then at the end of his little skittering, he'd be over here on the other end of the scene. Okay, so then we have this little bug kind of skittering across the screen just like that. We might want to put him like underneath the desks, but you know, again, we can just do that by adjusting the value on the z-axis. So if you click on the desk, notice the desk is at -50 on the z-axis. This desk is at -2. All I need to do is make sure his z-axis is less than -50. So we'll go to -51 at frame 1, and then we'll press the tab hotkey to go to the next keyframe. And you'll see it's back at 0, so we need to go again to -51. Make sure it's at -51 the whole way. And then our bug will skitter under the desk like that. All right. So we have successfully made a skittering bug. All right, and that's about all the time we have for this webinar. We finished right at 6 o'clock here, so exactly an hour. So we're going to move now to the Q&A session. If any of you guys have any questions about what I've done here, or you'd like to, you know, see anything else, make sure you put that in the questions section of your GoToWebinar panel there. And I'm going to just go ahead and open that up right now. We have quite a few attendees, so there might be quite a few questions here. So let me take us a little while to get over this. Okay, so let's go ahead and answer the questions then. So first question comes from Daniel. When using the face-fitting editor to morph a character's head, why don't you have shortcuts for the pan, zoom, and select tools? Face-fitting editor to morph a character's head. Very different topic right now, Daniel. I'd recommend just email me, kai@reallusion.com. That's kai@reallusion.com. Don't want to get too much off topic in this webinar. That's a bit more complicated. We do have, I'm not sure if we have hotkeys for the pan, zoom, and select tools. If you guys want to find the hotkeys, by the way, for CrazyTalk Animator, kind of really speeds up the workflow. You can go up to Help and go to the User Manual. And in the User Manual, there'll be a section called Keyboard Shortcuts at the bottom, okay? So I use a lot of these myself, sometimes unconsciously when I'm doing tutorials, so sometimes people say, oh, what did you do there? So if I use any keyboard shortcuts on you guys here, please forgive me for that and just let me know. Global shortcuts here, so a number of very useful ones are the ones here on the top, on-screen display, and then working area, shortcuts, and camera positioning, all this stuff here. What I do for camera movement myself, I don't really follow these camera movements here. I just go ahead and say I wanted to move my camera right now, for example, I would hold the Alt key and I would click and drag in my scene. So if I hold the Alt key and I click and drag, that means I can move my camera without selecting anything. Okay, that's what I use all the time. Hold Alt and left click and drag to move. Hold Alt and both mouse buttons to zoom in and out of your scene, just like this. Okay, so Alt and both mouse buttons, and Alt and left mouse button. That's the most useful hotkeys you'll ever learn for camera movement. Instead of going up here all the time, camera zoom, camera pan, and rotate, you can just hold Alt, left click, and Alt and both mouse buttons. Okay, so yeah, for the face-fitting editor, we may have that. I think the face-fitting editor is we may be adding those in the future, but definitely email me and I'll get your feedback to the right people. We have a development team that adds all the hotkeys and everything like that. So yeah, email me and I'll give your feedback to the development team. That goes for everyone else as well. If you have any features you'd like to add or like to request, just email me, kai@reallusion.com, or you can email developer@reallusion.com, also goes to me, and I'll ship that off to the development department. Okay. Next question, is there a way to hide a screen like you do with a background image when you go to Edit, Project Settings, and unchecked Active Image? Not sure what you mean. I showed a couple of various ways to hide objects in the screen. Again, I like to use the lock and the show features right here. There's the visibility and also the opacity. So that's various ways you can make your object invisible. All right. A couple people who are loving Gary Pye here. Yeah, Gary Pye is a good friend of mine, and you can also request stuff from Gary Pye too if you want, like customized characters. He's kind of a busy guy, but you can also always get in touch with him as well. Okay, Russ asks, can the logo be done in Illustrator and imported? Yeah, it can be done in Illustrator for sure. Any program that can export transparent files, transparent PNGs, you can use that. If you want to save money, you can use GIMP. GIMP. That's a free software, very similar to Photoshop, a little bit slower, but if you're on a budget, it works just fine. Okay, so a question from Maria about G3 characters. Is it possible to use a 3D function on G3 characters and the use of different clothes? Now, Maria, to answer your question there, G3 characters are a totally different animal than G2 characters. We have separate tutorials on that. G3 characters are more, they use the traditional bone structure bone character structure to animate the sprites, to kind of move those sprites around. There's no 3D function for G3 characters. I don't believe there will be. Unfortunately, you'll have to have just separate character files for each character's angle. I'm not sure if any of you are aware, but G3 characters are single angle characters, but they do have the flexibility of bone structures and the ability to edit your body parts separately in Photoshop instead of Flash. I'll just show you a quick difference here. G3 human characters, so we'll use this front-facing female, and then we'll go to G2 characters and use this character right here. Now, one thing that G2 characters can do that G3 characters cannot is if you press the bracket key, you can rotate your character to all different directions. This is what I believe Maria was talking about. You can't do this with G3 characters. G3 characters are only a single structure. But if you go over here to the motion key editor, you'll see that G3 characters have a bone structure that you can manipulate. G2 characters do not. So G3 characters, you can do stuff like this. Okay. With G2 characters, you can use transform, but there's no bones. So you have to edit them all, each sprite section separately. Okay. So there's no flexible bending like this in G3 characters. So I actually do personally some projects using CrazyTalk Animator 3 still, and if the project you're working on requires multiple angles, like the characters from multiple angles, I still tend to use G2 characters. However, if you can work it so that your camera view is restricted to a certain angle where your character's not turning around too much, G3 characters are definitely the way to go. But G2 characters have so much flexibility, and I'm not sure if we're going to be releasing more of those. I definitely think we should be improving upon that G2 concept, but yeah, I can't really tell you much in terms of that, unfortunately. But yeah, so Maria, to answer your question there, the G3 characters, I don't believe there'll be a 3D function in the future, but the clothing modification is very simple, as you may know. Okay, so Mark mentions I'm going a little too fast here, so some things I'm using shortcuts. I can apologize for that. Sometimes I do it a little bit unconsciously here. Now, and we also may be experiencing some lag, but you're always welcome to review the video later on, or you can email me personally for any tips that I may have missed in this webinar here. Another question from Daniel asking, can you import an MOV file into a screen? Yes, you can import MOV files into CrazyTalk Animator 3 projects. Basically, any video format you can import into CrazyTalk Animator 3. Okay, so Snehal asks, do you prefer to do different scenes in the same file or different files and then compile it in an edit? Well, that's an easy answer for me. I definitely prefer to do different scenes using different files, just because it simplifies things a little bit. Like I'll show you the structure for my CTA class folder here. Just get my questions panel out of the way there. So I have a separate project for intro. I have a separate project for office, which was just my design project without the characters in it. And then I have a separate project for scene 1. And there should be a scene 3, this final scene where he jumps off the building. But I just keep those all separate. And you can assemble the final videos in Premiere, which I'll talk about how to do in the third part of this webinar series. Okay, so I'm going to go back to questions here. Okay, so, all right. Yeah, some people are mentioning there's other ways to do the stuff I did in Photoshop. I am by no means a Photoshop pro. I have average ability in Photoshop at best. So apologies if I took things did stuff that was a little bit too long. You can use shortcuts, but yeah, I'm not the best at Photoshop. Okay. So we have a question from Robert. This is related to iClone. Now, Robert, maybe just email me about iClone since it's a CrazyTalk animator-themed webinar here. He's asking you about Genesis 3 characters in iClone. Definitely email me, kai@reallusion.com, K-A-I. So I'd rather not spend more time on the topics that aren't related to CTA 3 at this moment. So John asks, if I miss tomorrow, will it be recorded as well? Yeah, we're recording all 3 sessions, so we'll be able to send you the links if you miss one of the sessions, no problem. We'll be emailing that to you guys. Snehal asks, do we have depth of field settings in the camera? Unfortunately, with CrazyTalk Animator 3, there's no depth of field for the cameras, but it's a very, very, very simplistic camera system, to be honest. We do have that in iClone, but not in CrazyTalk Animator 3, unfortunately. What you can do is if you have iClone as well, you can import your CTA 3 animations on separate layers and import those into iClone and use the depth of field camera there as well. I'm actually a lot better at using iClone than I am at CTA 3, I believe. Okay, so Annie asks, is it possible to put a black frame around the work area because I find it hard to see the edge? I tried a vignette just outside the work area, but it doesn't save the files. Yeah, you can put a black frame. I mean, just import it as an image layer, maybe, is the way I would recommend doing it. You know, if you create something really quick in Photoshop, import it as an image layer, and that might help. I'm not sure if there's a way to change the width of this work area as well. I'm not sure. I kind of forget. Fixed line width. Yeah, I don't believe there is a way to actually change the width of that, unfortunately. But again, that's something that we can look to in future versions or future patches. So email that to me, and we'll take a look at you know, maybe adding that in the future, the ability to do that. But you know, what I would do if you're as a temporary solution for that, maybe just create a quick square or a cube in Photoshop. Whoops. Maybe something like 1024 by 780. And then just maybe do something like a rectangle with 0 fill. Or no fill, there we go. Just something like this maybe. Oh, we need to make sure our stroke is a lot thicker. There we go. But we need to make sure it's the right color as well. You can probably just fill it. Okay, we'll go ahead and use that. So save as a PNG. This is probably what I would do as a temporary solution, just kind of quickly showing you here. And bring that into your project as an image layer. Okay, and then you can resize that. and no matter how much you zoom in or zoom out, that image layer will always stay the same because the image layer is basically attached to your camera. Okay, so you just place it like that, and you know, probably want to stretch, make it a little bit larger so it's on the outside of the work area. But there's your temporary workaround there for Annie. All right. Okay. So next question. Apart from Photoshop, what photo editor software do you recommend? I recommend GIMP. I mean, if you want something for free, I've used GIMP in the past. It's fairly good. Just not the fastest software, but if you have a fast computer, I think it should be okay. Blender kind of suffers from the same problem. It's free, but it's really sometimes slow in my experience and a little bit non-intuitive. That's 3D software there. Okay, anyways. Okay, so all right, a couple of people who have gotten emails all sent over to me already. Okay, can you do William asks, can you do an over-the-shoulder shot with G3 characters? That's a really good question. Unfortunately, what you would need for that is you would need a separate character, the back of the character's head. I mean, if it's an over-the-shoulder shot, you don't really need a character. You can actually just animate like a prop. You can create an image of the character from the back, and you can create a very simple bone structure on it to move it back and forth. That would be what I would do for an over-the-shoulder shot for a G3 character. For those of you who are unfamiliar with that, an over-the-shoulder shot is a very common camera position where you'll have the camera over the shoulder of one character facing another character's face. So to do that with a G3 character, you wouldn't be able to use it for a character, but just draw a picture of the character's upper torso from behind, and then you could add a simple bone structure onto that. That would be my feedback, the easiest way I can think of to do that. Okay, so Ponai asks, how would you compare CTA 3 to Powtoon and VideoScribe for YouTube video clip creating? I'm not familiar with either of those actually, Powtoon or VideoScribe. Unfortunately, sorry, Ponai. Maybe you want to check that out. I should probably be familiar with that, but I'm not familiar with either of those. I'll probably Google them later, but I can't really give you any feedback as far as that's concerned because I don't have experience with them. Okay, question from Scott. Do you develop separate scenes in CT3, then assemble the scenes in another program like Adobe or Camtasia? Yes, I do it in Adobe Premiere, which we talk about in the third webinar, and I'll show you how to. It's really simple, super simple stuff. Just basic Premiere editing. You can watch a 10-minute YouTube video and probably learn all the stuff that I'll show you as far as Adobe Premiere editing goes. All right. Nice work, Youngin. Awesome. I like being called Youngin. How to search for a prop. Buck's asking how to search for a prop. Well, you can go onto the top here, and under props, I believe that is there a search option in CrazyTalk Animator? Find file. I think you can choose. Oh. Well, you can use the Explore search option here. So, okay, an easy way to do this is if you're looking for a prop, for example, what I would do is, click the prop folder, maybe select Find File. We have this option with iClone and Character Creator, but not with CrazyTalk Animator 3. It appears. So, unfortunately, Buck, I can't. We don't have that. That's something that we probably should add. We don't come across people with too many files with CrazyTalk Animator. That's the only thing. But I guess the workaround right now, that's a good feature that I'll probably talk to developers about. Find file, and you can probably just use the search option in Explorer. I don't know. Maybe I can search for run. Okay, here's all my runs. Okay, so in the props, I'd have all the runs, or you can search for dog or something, and they'll pop up here. This is a body template. Oops. And you can just click and drag it from here, I guess. Oh, need to apply it to a character since it is a run. There we go. Okay, so there's the run. Okay, anyways, that's the workaround for that. So unfortunately, sorry about that. I didn't realize we couldn't search for the files in the scene manager, in the content manager. You can search in the scene manager, but content manager, it appears not. All right, so that's unfortunate. We'll probably try to improve that in future versions. Okay, I'm just reading a longer comment here. Yeah, so Mark was just mentioning I'm going a bit fast for his comfort there. Apologies for that. We just have a lot of stuff to get through. And again, I'm more than happy to explain this to you guys at a slower pace. If you email me later on, I can walk you through things step by step. I know some people it's a little bit fast, and some people complain it's too slow. But yeah, I'll try and adjust that in the future. Now, Keith asks, do you know if layer export works for Corel Photo Paint and Pipeline? I've never used Corel Photo Paint, but as long as you can export transparent PNGs or Targa files, TGA files, you should be okay. As long as there's transparent export, you should be okay. Flash would even work for that. We can also import in Flash files as well. Okay, so comment from Ponai asking if we can create more training videos regarding text-to-speech. Yeah, actually that's a good idea. I actually do most of the tutorials on CrazyTalk Animator myself. So if you have any requests for tutorials, you can also email me directly as well. So text-to-speech. I'll make a note of that there. We have had requests for that in the past as well, but we do have a pretty busy tutorial schedule. Okay, so William's mentioning you can do the frame with a rule of thirds. Yeah, so the thirds. Okay, so that's a good. I think that's a comment on how we can improve the software. So rule of thirds is when you split up the screen into thirds. It deals with cinematography, but I won't get into too much detail on that right now since we're running a little bit short on time. Okay, so Mark mentions here that PixLR works and has a web-based and download version. So that's PIXLR. Let's take a quick look at that. PixLR editor. It must be the one. So correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but I believe he's talking about this PixLR editor. Looks like you need Flash Player. I don't know if I have Flash installed on this, but if you have Flash, then this looks like a good option. I'm not sure if they have an offline option, but PixLR, that's feedback from Mark there. So another good photo editor you guys can check out. Okay, question from Carl. I downloaded a lot of resources. How can I make sure everything is loaded and working? Can someone help me with that? If you've downloaded stuff I'm not sure if you purchase it from the content store or the marketplace or something like that, but you can always go into your account and you can find out the stuff you've downloaded. You can re-download it again. I'd recommend maybe just email me privately about that, Carl, because I want to log into my account, but there's a lot of private stuff in that account, so I can't really do that on the webinar right now. So you can see. So Mark mentions in CrazyTalk Animator 2, there's a campfire scene where you do a 360 pan of the characters. Now, yeah, unfortunately, with the characters, the G3 characters, you can do that. You can do that same scene, but again, like I mentioned, you would need to have created different angles for your G3 characters. So the one that I showed you, this one right here, is front-facing. You would need to create a separate version. You would probably just draw it in Photoshop and then import it in. In the next webinar tomorrow, we're going to talk about how to import in characters from Photoshop, customized characters from Photoshop. So yeah, but you can do that technically, but it'll be a lot more of a hassle than the simple rotating your characters with the brackets like you can do with the G2 characters. Okay, so a mention from Carl, Video Scribe is a good software for assembling the videos. Video Scribe. I'll just give that a quick look. And there's so much stuff that I'm not familiar with. This must be the one here. Create your own whiteboard videos. So here's another recommendation from Carl. Okay. Now, a couple more questions here. We're going to have to end it in about 5 minutes here, so just kind of stack our time here. All right, so Tyronda asks, she's interested in using the mocap plugin with CrazyTalk Animator to give fluid movements. Will you discuss mocap with Animator? We are currently in development of this, so we're going to be allowing mocap use with CrazyTalk Animator in the future. Now, I can't really give you a solid date on when that's going to be coming, but that's under development. Another cool thing about G2 characters that I really like, and I often do this in my own projects as well, is you can import in iClone animations for your G2 characters. So any animation, any 3D animation from iClone, you can import in and apply it to your G2 character. And I'll show you that in just a moment while it's loading up here. But yeah, we will have mocap. We're going to be integrating mocap into both software for your information there. Okay, so I'll just wait till iClone 7 loads up here. Okay, next question. If we create our own character object with our own custom bone structure, bone rigging, does it mean we can't use the programmed actions available? I believe you're talking about the library motions, meaning we have to animate ourselves. So that question is from Noor Hayati. Okay, so yes, unfortunately, if you create your own custom bone structure, you cannot use any of the library motions. So what he's talking about here is if you created your own bone structure, you can't go to the animation library and apply any of these motions. We have different motions that are used for different types of characters. Now, I recommend that when you're creating your free bone characters, you should try to use some of these templates here. So go to Actor and G3 Spline. So if you have like a earthworm or something like that, you can use this template, or a caterpillar, or there's wings templates as well. Just use these templates here. And if you use these templates, if there's anything free bone, that means you can't use the embedded animations. But if you use the spine here, G3 Spine, under the animation tab, there's G3 Spine animations that are particular for those bone hierarchies. Okay, so I'm going to show you really quick here is just a animation from iClone to CrazyTalk Animator 3 here. So maybe something like let's use Heidi perform. So air dance maybe. So just click and drag it directly from the content manager, and you can see a 3D animation applied to a 2D character, and she'll kind of, well, hopefully rotate around a bit more, but doesn't really show the full effect. Maybe something where she can spin around a bit more. Dance graceful maybe. Anyways, you can see you can apply it to the G2 character, but not to the G3 character. Right, so okay, there she spins around. Okay, cool. So and then she goes back into the distance, and that was one of the really cool things that I liked about G2 characters, is the ability to do stuff like this. And it looks, quite nice. You can use it in tons and tons of projects, and then you can basically double the size of your motion library with all these iClone 7, iClone 6 motions and everything like that. Okay, let's go a quick couple more questions in here, and then we'll end off the webinar. Okay, so Angie recommends Affinity Designer as an alternative to Photoshop. So it says $40, Affinity Designer. I'll just type that in real quick here. Affinity Designer. All right, this one right here by Seraph. Okay. So this is another option as well for editing your images. Okay. And Rosemary asks, can we mix CTA2 and CTA3 characters in the same scene? Yes, we can. You can use G3 and G2 characters in the same scene. I've done it before in my own projects. I've replaced the faces and stuff like that, which we'll talk about how to do in the next webinar, replacing the heads of your characters so they look more similar or same styles. Okay, so then another question from Norhayati. When I add a bone at the cloth of a long gown, when I rotate the bone, the cloth doesn't rotate along with the bone. The cloth will only move horizontally or vertically, but cannot rotate. You may need to look into pinning in the bone structure, or pinning some point on your character's clothing. We have a tutorial that goes into a detail on that. I forget which one it is. I did it recently. A recent tutorial anyways, where I talk about creating your own free bone structure. I think it's the free bone with morph heads tutorial that I just did recently, and we talk about pinning different parts of your character's clothing so that you can move it separately. And you can also, add additional bone hierarchy into it as well. Okay, so a little comment here from Mario, I guess. I just did an animation using text-to-speech software. Some text-to-speech software exports audio files, in which case it works like a human recording. There's some really good text-to-speech software out there. We've collaborated with a couple of text-to-speech. I forget who we're working with right now. You can just type in like CrazyTalk TTS maybe. Here, and you can come up with this. This is with CrazyTalk 7. So we had the, wait, that's not right. This one here, tts.reallusion.com. So you can actually purchase the text-to-speech from here as well. You can just purchase however much you want. And there's we coordinated with a really good software to create really realistic text-to-speech. You can try it out here if you want. UK English, say like, okay, whatever, preview it.
You may enter your text here, select the language, change the pitch or speed, then preview the audio before converting. Enjoy.
All right, there you go. So you can just try it yourself in different accents, different languages, and see how it works. Man, I haven't seen that for quite a while. All right, so, okay. We have a little bit of disagreement from different people on different apps to use here. So some people are saying, no way, that's bad, or that's good. Okay, so finally for one more question here, another person's asking my email. It's kai@reallusion.com. Okay, kai@reallusion.com. And you can also email developer@reallusion.com as well. Okay, so Jerry asks, is there a way to convert G2 motions to G3 motions? Unfortunately, no. We can't convert those motions one to the other because the characters have completely different structures. G2 characters don't have a bone structure, unfortunately, so there's no way to convert the motions back and forth. Okay, so Scott asks a good question. When you apply a custom face on top of a G2 character face, will it still be able to use the lip sync? What I would recommend is importing the G3 character head face on top of a G2 character. You'll have more options for a lot of stuff, and I would recommend using that template, the G3 template, head template, instead of the G2 head template. But if you do that, then of course you won't be able to have the angle changes, but you will have a lot more options. So Nick asks, for the cockroach movement, can you do curved paths? Pretty good question. I'll finish off with this because the other ones are just kind of comments saying thank you and everything. So I'll just finish off with Nick's little question here about the cockroach. So again, we'll just do the same procedure here. We'll bring in our cockroach, and I'll show you how to do a quick curve animation for that cockroach. Okay, we're not going to animate him. We're not going to go through that part again. So I'm just going to do a transform. We'll just pretend he's moving his legs. Okay, so let's make him actually bigger since you guys can barely see him. Okay, so say we wanted the cockroach to kind of curve around the edge of the screen right here. So let's go to frame 50. Bring him over here. and maybe just rotate them. Okay, again, I'm just going to rotate them. You probably want to spend a lot more time on this, but and then over here, we'll bring them over here, and maybe rotate them this way. Okay, so what you would have is something like this. Obviously, you'd want to change the rotation at different intervals, but the way you can do the curve is you can just go up here and select curve. And when you do that, then you have a much smoother curve for your transform movement. You can actually move these points back and forth like this, and then you'd have something like this more. Okay, and it's more like he's floating in space at this point, but that's kind of how you do the curve editor. Okay, just move the points to wherever you want, and you can add different keyframes at whatever point you want. Okay, just a really quick tip there for creating smoother curves for your movements. Okay. All right, so that's where we're going to end off here, guys. We're quite a bit over time, so I want to thank you all for attending the webinar today, and hopefully learned a lot. Apologies again if I went a little bit fast for some people, but you can always email me as well. I'm always happy to help with any questions you might have, and we also have a plethora of other CrazyTalk Animator 3 tutorials online, and I hope to see you guys back for tomorrow's webinar where we talk more about character creation and character editing. And on Wednesdays, or day 3 webinar, where we talk more about the animation, camera movement, and exporting the final product. All right, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Thanks again for attending, and we'll end off things there. Again, don't forget to fill out the survey form, and we'll give you a $10 gift certificate for the content store, and we'll also send you the link for the special for the Gary Pye Little Mates characters. All right, awesome. That's about it, guys. Thanks so much again, and I'll see you tomorrow, I guess.